Hello everyone, I have here finally the 1/48th scale COBI SR-71 Blackbird. This is the non-executive edition, just the regular edition. There's an executive edition that also comes with an additional pilot and a different set or a second set of prints to make it into the NASA version. This one comes with 1,374 pieces and it retails for usually between $105 and $120 US. I got mine for about $100 on sale. The first thing I want to quickly cover is the stand and how it presents the aircraft so that I can then take the aircraft off the stand for some better looks at its lines. Obviously, this is in a takeoff or landing orientation, gear down. You can also optionally pop the gear up and still use it on the stand here. Obviously, that makes no difference. The stand does use two clear poles to hold the whole thing up, so it has a lot more stability than their single pole setups used to that they did before that had enough strength, but still left the planes much more wobbly than this. You know, it'll do that. You know, if you walk around and your surface moves, you can see it pitch a little bit, but at least it's not wobbling all over the place and twisting the way that they used to. This does give you a nice angle for a high, like top of bookshelf display as well, because the plane is completely finished on the underside. You know, it doesn't really have any camera unfriendly areas. You can see just a little bit under here, and I'll turn the whole thing over, but I just wanted you to see how this appeared on the stand at first. There's a small printed plaque right here and a spot for the minifigure. A lot of people have disliked COBI's figures for years and years and years, but this one actually doesn't look that bad to me. They have updated the faces. They look a lot more, I don't know, believable, just less cursed than before, even though, you know, proportions are still funky. I can actually roll with this. Three main things come to mind when I look at and think about this model. Number one, I'm so happy to have it and it looks so good. Number two, the build was so COBI, and I'll explain that more. Number three, it's too shiny. COBI is not afraid nor too cheap to make specialized parts where they absolutely need to, such as for the nose cone of a historical aircraft model in 1/48th scale. This needed to be this way. This is absolutely quintessential. This is essential to depicting an SR-71. You need all those complex shapes and you need all that subtlety. Without that, you know, you're just kind of imagining what you think it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to look like, and I appreciate that. It has separate pieces underneath and on top for that. Of course, it's printed. You can open the canopy, although it seals up pretty well. I mean, that is a nice look there, though. But the cockpit does not have a lot of detail in it. They got the instrument cluster towards the front, but otherwise it's pretty empty in there. Immediately behind that, it transitions to just normal building. But normal building for a COBI set might not be what you would expect if you're coming over from the leading brand. COBI has way more parts, way more useful, reusable, generic, geometric parts in their part inventory than you may be used to. So many different, subtly different slopes and curves and wedge slopes to allow shapes to be sculpted almost like from clay in just a fantastic way. I mean, some of these transitions back here, just how subtly this edge changes its angle is just so beautiful to me. I really enjoy seeing that come together. As a result of that, you do have to be very careful when building sets like this, because it's easy, if you're not being super careful, it's easy to mix different parts up that are very, very slightly different. So you have to, it ends up just being a slower process to build it, but very satisfying to me personally once you get used to it. Of course, no stickers these days from COBI. Everything is done with prints. The print opacity is generally pretty good. I think that here, maybe this is a little bit light. I don't know if they intended for that to be lighter like that, if that's supposed to be a gray, but for example, just the whites in here are not completely white. It's not bad, and the red I think is not as opaque as it's intended to be, but basically you're seeing some black come through the colors, but I think it actually results in a more realistic look that way. There's a tiny bit of inconsistency along the run from different stampings, different groups of parts being stamped. I am trying to be really nitpicky here, but at the end of the day, I am very satisfied with how this looks, but I don't want to give them a free pass on things that I think are poor, imperfect quality, or suggestions of and examples of imperfect quality. As far as I'm concerned, the design of this, the designer did a fantastic job, and the graphic designer did a fantastic job. I'm really happy with the shaping. I'm also happy with the durability. I wish that these had more downward deflection. They can only go up. These can move all over the place, so you get great range of motion there. This is a specialized piece for the tail, the vertical stabilizer. Also with a print, and they did 2 of those because they had to be mirrored. It's not just the same piece. And I do appreciate this being a specialized piece, because if it was not, it would be hecka thick. And instead, it's not. That really would have been disruptive. It's very difficult to get black on black, especially with the mirror piano black finish to focus reliably. But it really would have been distracting, I think, if you had one brick thick tail feathers back here, or if it was built on the side and it was multiple plates thick with just some tiles trying to cover up the outside, but then you would see anti-studs all down here. That just really would have taken away from the elegance of this very, very special machine. I mean, there's nothing like it other than, the 812, which, obvious reasons. I think this deserves to have special pieces there. And I think, again, that the end result is pretty stunning. On the underside, you can see more of why I called this build so COBI. They use a lot of inverted tiles. So there is a lot of upside down building here, but they also use a lot of inverted half thick tiles. So the thickness of a base plate. See if I can get this to actually focus in there, maybe a little bit manually. All these pieces here that have the texture on them are made with a softer plastic, and they are 1/2 the thickness of a plate. So they don't contribute a lot to the overall thickness of the thing. It is a different texture, a very distinctly different texture from their regular shiny pieces. And that is potentially an issue. I actually kind of like it. I prefer this, but the difference where it's not intended, the difference is still there. It's a visible difference. Not everything is completely covered, and made smooth under here, but so much of it is that when you do have this on display at a higher angle on a stand, like I said, at the top of a bookshelf or something, it still looks right. You can see that it is brick built, but it still looks like it's trying to be a model. It looks like it's not having to try too hard to convince you that it's trying to be an SR-71 model and not just kind of a toy version or, a rough cut, a rough take on one with bricks. The one thing that isn't good here is durability along these chines right here, just because you don't have a lot of studs to connect these slopes here. They can come off easily. So if you grab this around here, you're most likely going to start to loosen some of those up, and you'll see the difference on the other side where it just doesn't line up as much anymore. It's very easy to put that back, but I didn't want to call that out as just one little area you have to be careful with. Otherwise, you might get frustrated the first couple times before you learn your lesson, and just don't grab it from basically the neck here. But I mean, look at how smooth that is overall. For something that's made from bricks like this, that's really, really good. And they do give you the pieces to replace the landing gear. So you can take all that stuff out, and they give you the inverted tiles to fill in those spots. These holes here are for the stand as well. It's where the stand, the tops of the stand poles go in. The leftover parts show more of why I say this build is just so COBI. So these are the parts that will fill in where the landing gear are. And these are their, what I call studs. It's the size of a stud on the outside, and you put it into the anti-stud, the underside of a piece, to make the underside of a piece have a stud on it that you can then attach anywhere else. So you can change the direction of building 180 degrees in literally no space. These parts here do the same thing, but in reverse. So this can actually go into a bar-sized opening and create a stud anywhere that you want, that you have a hollow stud. So I can take one of these and put it right in there and then create an additional stud that stands off from there. This is a copy of the pitot tube that's used on the tip. They've got short little bars that are used. And one thing that I didn't show you was that the hairpiece is also included, so you can have your pilot bee helmet off. Let me just put that on real quickly. And again, you can see like this just isn't as cursed as COBI figures used to be. I feel like this has a right to exist. The old ones did not. The old ones needed to be burned in fire. This I think is okay. Again, I paid about $100 US for this, but it's typically between 105 to 120. I'd say probably 110 is the average for 1,374 pieces here, and a nice scale model that is brick built with some unique and important specialized molds to make it work, and prints all across, and of course the stand. COBI used to be cheap. It doesn't seem to be cheap anymore. I've heard that it's cheaper in some parts of Europe, but I mean, like places that I've seen, it's still looking like 90 to 100 euros. So it's still in the same price range as us. In the UK, I've seen it for like 105 pounds UK. Yeah, which just, I don't know. It's still, I haven't gotten over the price that the fact that they've increased their prices. It used to be really easy to say, wow, you get so much value, but now they're doing higher quality, better stuff and a lot more of it, but the value isn't as amazing as it used to be. I think the value is, I guess, fine by today's average standards, especially compared to the leading brand, but it's just not amazing. You know, the price is no longer a major selling point for it. However, the kit is good. The look of this thing when it's done is stunning. It's right. I really appreciate the fact that they try to do things right. They go for accuracy. They care about the source material more than most do. However, it is too shiny. It is much too shiny. Look at that. Look at that shine. Yeah, that's too much. So I'm going to do the same thing with this that I did with my COBI A10. I'm going to mask off the windows in the canopy and probably take the tires off, take it off its stand. I'm going to take it to the spray booth, the paint booth, and I'm going to spray the whole thing with matte, clear paint and take all that shine away, and it will be beautiful. I will come back and show you once that is done in a separate video, just something quick. But it's just it's a nice, real easy, non-destructive thing that you can do. It does change the surface. You know, you're not going to be able to sell it as original form that way unless you use maybe water-based, not acrylic. I don't know if there's anything that's completely removable for that, but I don't care because I got this because I want it. I'm sharing with you the review because I have it, but I got this for me primarily, not for you, and definitely not to resell it. So I will make it better for myself, but for folks who don't want to do that, you know, what you buy, I think, out of the box is just too shiny. Otherwise, it's beautiful. It has some small quirks, but for the most part, I'm just super happy with it. I just wish that it was cheaper, but it's not overpriced by today's standards. It's just not underpriced by today's standards, the way that COBI stuff used to be. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that this video brought you some value, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.